Okay. So I will continue with artificial chemistry for the joy of you. So I'm a theoretical physicist in disorder system, so spin glasses, etc. But last year I've worked on an artificial chemistry. So I discovered this model of that was introduced a few years ago in the same conference in the COVID time by Herman Kruszewski that is here. And I found his model very interesting, powerful and simple. And so I started to study it, and then we started to collaborate on this model. So I start very large. And so what is life? This is a conference about artificial life. So one question is, for example, is it possible to define life from first principles? Is it possible to put some well-defined boundary between life and non-life? All these questions are questions that drive our understanding of life. And one starting point was the concept of autopoiesis 50 years ago. So an autopoietic system is a network of processes which produces all the components whose internal production is necessary to maintain the network operating as a unit. So we see that is a dual relation, is it like a tau? You have processes and components that must self-sustain each other. Then there's many other abstract attempts to formalize what is life. And one recent one that I endorse, I think is interesting, is the closure of constraint. It was in 2015, two philosophers, Monteville and Mossio. And is a little bit more physical, so it speaks about, instead of processes, a component, constraint, and flow of energy and matter, but essentially is the same. So we are always trying to argue what is life in abstract term, and then we have, on the other side, we have very detailed understanding of many metabolic processes, a very different level and how they interact between them. So here there is a metabolic network map. And you see, for example, there is the citric acid. You see? No, yes, all in one. Okay. So you see here the citric acid cycle, that is the one for the cellular respiration. So one citric acid cycle produces one ATP. And to do this cycle, you need a lot of enzymes that are very, very specific and very large compared to the molecules that are in the cycle. And this makes understand how intricate is all the network of interdependencies that you need the protein synthesis to create enzymes that are way bigger than the molecule that are synthesized for the respiration of the cell. Okay, so we have two very different background, and we would like to have some model that can give us some abstract understanding of life, mathematical but simple, and that makes some emergence of this kind of network, metabolic network. And for this, I think the combinatory chemistry introduced by Herman Kruszewski and Mikolov in this article that you see here is very interesting. So there's two operations in this so it's a soup of function interacts with each other. There's no space. They interact with two different operations, application and evaluation. So application is just A, is not a plus, is A applied to B, is A of B. So it's very abstract. And then a function evaluation, you have, for example, the function A1 is a specific function, and it has one argument, and it returns the argument. These are simple application evaluation, but you have more complex one. For example, with composed function, you have A of B that applied to C of D of E of F. And you have also the tree structure below, and it gives this. And then you can have a function evaluation that are more complex with 3 arguments, and then it recombines the arguments. So the A2 function is recombining the arguments. So it's modifying the structure of the trees. So these are the 2 basic operations of the SAP. And then we have the atomic function. So the function that are the starting point of the SAP to evolve. And for example, we have 3 atomic functions, S, K, I. And these are called combinators, and are known by mathematicians and logicians since 1 century ago. So they are very well known in this ambit, but in artificial life, they are quite new. So with these 3 combinators and application evaluation, you can create a chemistry of a function. There is a ligation cleavage that is just the application, with also the reverse, so the cleavage. And then you have the reduction, and each basic atomic function has a different reduction. So you have I, that is the identity, and is keeping the argument. Then you have K, that is keeping the first argument and releasing the second. And you have S, that is more complex. It has 3 arguments and is recomposing them, but at the same time, it needs another argument, another external reactant that is equal to the 3rd argument to act. So it's kind of absorbing 1 copy of the 3rd argument. So with these 3 reduction, these 3 reduction have higher propensity. So you need to imagine that it's like exploration kind of. So exploration is ligation cleavage, and exploitation is the functioning of the system. So you want the functioning of the system, the reduction, to be with higher propensity, because you want to structure something in the soup. So now we take a step back and we say, what is important for us in a good soup, in a soup that has something that grows and is alive. So we want, first of all, computational unboundedness, or in our case, we equate it to Turing completeness. And for us, this is the minimal requirement to have an open-ended system. So you can create arbitrary complex function. But this is not enough. It's not enough to have arbitrary complex function in potential to have a system that is effectively building something interesting. So you need also to have some efficiency in the system to explore new function. So the efficiency part is more tricky, because it's not put in as, it cannot be put as a first, it cannot be injected as axiom. It's something that should emerge. Okay, so what we observe in this system, when we run a simulation, we observe that there are many emergence cycles. So cycles are just a reaction that reduction that goes back to the first function. So here you have many different reduction cycles. For example, the simplest one is this blue one. So it's just 3 nodes. So it's 3 function and is rotating between the 3. So when is a dynamical attractor, when you enter the cycle, you will continue the cycle. And so let's explore this simple cycle. So it's with S. So it has 3 arguments. I, and the 3rd argument is again S of I. And so the 3rd argument is the one that needs a copy. So the copy is the Z. So here, no, why I did this? Oh no. No, it doesn't go. Okay, it's not important. So, so you have the food, we call the reactant that is absorbed, we call it the food. So the first reduction is taking some food, and then is releasing some waste. And then there are other reactions, 2 and 3, that are just identity reactions, so they are simpler, just taking the first argument. So this is just to say that this simple cycle is 3 nodes, is going back to itself, because you see the last expression is the first expression, and they absorb some food and it releases some waste. So then you can represent it in a more compact form, and you just say, okay, you have a cycle, you have some food that is eaten by the cycle, and you have some waste that is released. And this, I didn't mention, there is a conservation of the number of atoms in each reaction. So in each, there is a local conservation of number of atoms, and this is very important. So the food that you eat, then if you have really a cycle, you need to release it in waste. So these are small metabolic cycles, but then you can change the letters that constitute the atomic function. For example, you don't have the I in the soup, but you can rewrite the I as a SKK. And if you do so, you have this second less efficient loop that is equivalent to the first one, but it has a longer way of writing, and so a longer food, a longer waste, a longer time too. And then, yeah, I'm clicking, but it doesn't seem to work. Ah, now it works. Okay. So then you have an abstract way of defining this cycle. You just put an M instead of all letters, and you say M of M is the autopoietic molecule. It's an abstract class of autopoietic molecule. You can imagine they can write the same molecule in infinite different ways with different atomic bases. And for each you have food and you have waste. But this is a stupid cycle because it's just going on itself. So it's not doing anything, it's just remaining the system. But what would be interesting is to have a cycle that is going to itself, but is also doing something. So that's why we introduce analytically the concept of enzyme in this soup. And enzyme is like the simple cycle, but now you have other two arguments, and you are absorbing A of B and B, and you are not only decomposing the now Z instead of M, but you are also assembling A of B. So the cycle is doing something. It's not only wasting some food, it's wasting some food, and meanwhile is doing something. So we say this is the class of abstract class of enzyme. And this class can be implemented in very different way. For example, if you have SKI as a basic atom, you will have an implementation of this form that is very long, so very inefficient. But then you can introduce different bases, and you can try to reduce the cost. So have a more efficient way of writing the enzyme. For example, on the right, you have the most efficient way that we found to write this enzyme. And so now we are exploring how this enzyme can influence the dynamics of the system and the emergence of some hierarchical structure in the system. So our imagination is that this kind of enzyme could enhance some kind of autocatalytic mechanism in the soup. So for now, we have just cycles that can be also quite complex, but they are not really interacting, or at least we don't observe a really important interaction to grow some structure, and this could enhance this. And also the enzymes, since they keep information about the molecule that they absorbed, about the function they absorb, they have also capacity of having some kind of dynamics of multiple time scale. So this is what I wanted to say. I don't know if the time was too much. Yeah. This is the summary, and yes, thank you.